Today I'm going to try something slightly different with this character review of Sandman to get to the fun stuff just a little bit quicker. My name is Nate, and welcome to the Gamers Guild. Sandman has joined the world of Marvel Crisis Protocol, and probably has one of the higher ceilings of play with all of the different tools, decision points, and choices that come with his character, because there are several that are unique to him, not to mention the allowance of multiple grunts even. So let's get into it. Sandman's stat block isn't anything too crazy for a 4 threat. I think it's worth mentioning that the short move is on a 50mm base, and he has some mobility built in with his superpowers, so you shouldn't be too worried about the slower move speed. He does have a really nice variety of attacks though. His Silicate Strike is a pretty standard builder with a range of 2, strength of 5, but a size 2 throw in any direction on a wild is fantastic. Sure, it only works on size 2 or less, but still those throws add up a nice bit of damage, not to mention control. Sandblast's beam won't give him any power, but it gives Sandman a way to deal damage to multiple characters, and probably even more importantly, a source of control on characters of any size, which is really nice on a free attack. His spender is basically just a bunch of dice. Nothing wrong with that. Sometimes the best way to deal with a problem is just rolling as many dice as you can to overload a character with good defensive tech. This attack will probably oftenly be more swinging with 10 dice instead of 12. If you can get things set up really nicely, maybe you hit that 12, but if your opponent is smart, they probably won't let Sandman activate with his constructs already set up. Even so, a 10 dice spender for 4 power is a pretty good rate. The only other thing Sandman will need to spend power on is his Reabsorb. It's going to let him choose one of his grunts that's within range 3 and place within range 1 of it. It will also let Sandman heal a damage, which is nice, but at the trade-off of KOing the sand construct in question, thus, reabsorbing it. Which wouldn't feel too bad if it weren't for the cost of making them in the first place. The innate power Create Sand Constructs allows Sandman to have 2 grunts instead of the normal 1, and it gives the qualifier that at the start of his activation, if there are fewer than 2 in play, he may suffer 2 damage, and if he does, you can place 1 Sand Construct into play within range 2 of Sandman. It also unfortunately comes in activated. So 2 health for a grunt is quite the cost. Thankfully for Flint, he does have Healing Factor 1 to help offset this a little bit, but it only helps some. He also has Wall Crawler and the Sand Manipulation power that gives Sandman back a little bit of power whenever his constructs deal or take damage. So let's talk about the grunts now. The stat block is pretty standard for a grunt. They are the first grunts on a 35mm base, so that short move does hurt a little bit more, especially since they only have the 1 attack and it has a range of 2. But the level of control it offers is really nice for a grunt character, as long as your 4 strength attack can roll well enough at least. There is some added good news for the grunts, as well as some added downsides though. The good news is they themselves cannot be thrown, they don't suffer collision damage, so your opponent will actually have to take some dedicated actions to deal with these grunts instead of just an extra throw or something like that that can help chip in the extra damage. As well, they also take reduced damage from physical attacks by 1 to a minimum of 1, so there's also a chance that even if they are putting an attack into them, they'll actually need to roll decently enough, especially if you're able to spike on your defense roll, because 2 or 3 damage may not be enough to just one-shot these grunts off the table. Basically, they don't die to a stiff breeze. They are still pretty easy to pick off, though, especially if you swap into the energy or mystic attacks. However, there are downsides. They cannot interact or contest with any type of objective, and maybe worst of all, the constructs are KO'd when Sandman gets dazed, meaning that despite having 7 stamina on his injured side, Sandman is going to be waking up most of the time having an activated grunt and 5 stamina to kick off his activation. Though he still does have the healing factor, so he goes back up to 6. So let's get into some of the intricacies of Flint's card. First, something that isn't super obvious by just looking at his card, but when you deploy Sandman at the start of the game, you're still only allowed to deploy 1 grunt, so you won't have both sand constructs to start off the game. And since the one you summoned is only placed within range 2, and it is also starting activated, it will probably only get off one attack during round 2, since it'll have to move up to the midline and then hopefully have somebody within range 2 if you're lucky. As far as play patterns go from there, I can only recommend that you get games in with Sandman yourself, because there are a lot of decision points. Is it worth paying the health for a construct? Is it worth sacrificing the construct for the movement and heal? Do you go fishing for the wild throw to hit multiple enemies, or are you just going to use the sandblast on the line of enemies that you can hit? All of these questions are going to be a case-by-case situation that will take some time to really get the grasp on, and I really just can't give a straight answer here. Now, getting a little bit more big picture, Flint is going to be really great control piece. Sandblast is a crazy beam attack. He is not going to like getting displaced, but worst case scenario, he can eat one of his constructs to make a pretty nice amount of movement to get back to where he needs without wasting an action, meaning he's getting 2 sandblasts off, or sandblast and a strike, hoping for the throw trigger. His big punch is cool if you need it, but I think more times than not, the beam or builder with a throw are going to be the go-to options for Mr. Marco. He is affiliated with the Criminal Syndicate as well as Spider-Foes. I think his favorite places are going to be with Spider-Foes under Doc Ock. He's going to appreciate the status removal and extra power gain from there. And Kingpin will appreciate him and the secure control game that he offers up, between the grunts having any size push, as well as Sandman himself having multiple different control options on his attacks. Outside of those in affiliation homes, nothing really just screams Sandman to me. Maybe Storm's X-Men, since he can kind of just get a free hop instead of having to spend power round 1, but that's about the extent of cute splash synergies that come to mind for me. But that is all I have to say about Mr. Marco. If you have been watching my character reviews, let me know if you prefer this more generalized approach to the card, or if you enjoy the line-by-line breakdown more. I also want to go ahead and mention that I'm out of town next week, so there won't be a video on the 31st, but rather on the 7th, along with the next pulling for the Tritex Games giveaway for a standard MCP expansion of your choice. I'll have a video dropping then. All you need to do to enter that giveaway is to comment on a video the same month of its release. And speaking of Tritex, I want to go ahead and take a moment to shout out the sponsors of the guild who help make this content possible. If you're in the UK, you can shop at Tritex Games using the code TritexGGCP5 at checkout for an extra 5% off, and you can use this on a pre-order item like the upcoming Namor Black Panther or Defenders with Shang-Chi and Silver Sable. And it'll net you a total of 25% off of retail, which is real nice. Then if you're in the US, you can shop at GameChefs.org, where you can use the code GamersGuild for just a flat extra 15% off of your order, in addition to whatever discounted prices are already advertised. As always, if you have an LGS that you are playing at, we encourage you to support where you play. I also want to take a moment and say, if you're enjoying the content here on YouTube or one of the different podcasts that we put out and want to support our efforts directly, you can support us on Patreon. Or if you just want to join us in some silly discussions or ask questions to be answered, from rules to general advice, join the Guild Hall Discord page that has a link down in the description. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, keep on gaming.